So we have a lot of things to consider there. The thing about being in the clinics is that we don't have the ADA issues, that's the concern of the clinic. We don't have the Medi-Cal building issues, that becomes the concern of the clinic. And we get to ride along on their coattails and do our billing for Medi-Cal without having to go through all the hassle of trying to get the building up to space. The other thing that we've noticed in looking around, the Family Resource Centers have done an awesome job, but they have really outgrown the facilities that we started with. The food pantries and services they're providing, and with us in there, it's crowding them as well as us. So we love the one-stop concept, and it was great to get us off the ground, but now may be the time to take a look at dividing us up again into separate entities. We want to maintain those partnerships though, because the Family Resource Centers are how we get people to come to our services, and not just our behavioral health services. They also come for social services, they also come for our veteran services, they meet with public health folks. The Family Resource Centers serve a great purpose for us, and I would not like to see them leave those communities. Not my intent to ever defund them, although we have to talk about, right now, the bulk of their contract with us is to provide us with the support we need in those facilities. What do we do with them now? What can they do for us that we can pay for, and how much can we afford to pay for? So this is why we need some time to have some conversations with the resource centers and the Aurora Network about where are we going here? What do we want to do? And just an idea to toss out there. We know in South County in particular, there's a huge need for some kind of a little transportation system out there to get people back and forth between Furlong and Doyle and to their appointments in that area. And there are people living out in the outlying areas of that community who need to come into the facilities. So we know that a lot of our clients would take advantage of that transportation system if it was available. So one of the things that I've already gotten a little bit of information from the Transportation Department on is how would we go about maybe help subsidizing them to put together a little transportation system for out there. I don't know whether it be a taxi or a dial-a-ride or just a van, I don't know what it might look like, but that is something that we would be interested in helping to fund. That would be a great service for that community, would help keep the Family Resource Center a viable option in the community, and that's one of the ideas we have. We want to talk to our partners so we can talk about what other things might we be able to partner on that will work to keep our Family Resource Centers viable and a place for our Aurora network, and still have our behavioral health staff. It's just behavioral health staff in the clinics where they need to be for that medical support and integration. I'd be happy to, I have a recommendation there, which is that, we'd really like some more time, but whatever you direct, if you want us to get a modular or do a remodel job, we'll work on that. But we'd really like a little time to figure out how to do something the best that works for everybody. And that would be my recommendation, but as I said, we'll do whatever you like, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Aaron? I have a couple of questions. On your construction costs, Melody or Pete, is that do the prevailing wage, or is that just regular construction?
Well, if you did, like the modular, if you did the modular route, that's built in the factory, that's not subject to prevailing wage. As soon as you step on site, it does become prevailing wage, so as far as any site prep work or foundation work and stuff. If you added on to it, that would be prevailing wage on the existing building.
Okay. And on option 2 on the Big Valley, you have the foundation and sprinkler requirements. Why are we going to have sprinkler requirements in a modular?
That's something where the engineer comes in. I've had a conversation with NST that they depend on the square footage or maybe sprinkler requirements, something to look into. So that's why we're recommending that there be some engineering done to get all that stuff worked out. Because the foundation of modular, I'm not sure exactly what the requirements are on that too. So, maybe it'll save some cost there or maybe not. It depends on what the actual building code requires, and so you have to have an engineer do all work on that stuff. So.
And then another question I had is, looking out there at the fourth stage, at one point in time it was bought up at the Head Start building. Is that's not a viable option anymore? Or?
Well, the community seemed very opposed to us being there for fear that it would not be readily available if Head Start reopened their program.
Right now, Fort Sage is in conversation with the Head Start to get that open.
And then, and of course, you got the same thing as you have up in Big Valley versus moving to 80, but is there, I mean, it's hard to make the paradigm shift, but I mean, is there something available in Doyle where you can move the whole thing down Doyle?
You know, Pete and I went down there and looked, and really not much in Doyle either. They're small. And so that is, you know, breaking up a one-stop makes it sound like we're getting a divorce or something, and that's not the plan at all. We want to maintain that partnership. And what we have proven right here in Susanville is that we can have really good, strong partnerships that provide those integrated services for people without being co-located. And if we didn't have to worry about the co-location, it might make it easier for everybody to find a building that would work for them. Because with all of us together, we need 3,500 square feet or so, and it's got to be ADA compliant, and it's got to have all these things that, you know, Family Resource Center or network don't have to bump up against like we do. So,
One of the issues you have is that Doyle Clinic is not open.
right.
So, I mean, you can't make a plan to move into that Doyle Clinic, it might not get open.
Well, when I talked to Phil, though, we
I
could.
know, but I've also heard the other side of that story too, so.
But Phil is willing to allow us to rent space there as he has the sheriff's office. And
Right.
on the days when we went out there, we would just take our clerical support with us and possibly even a nurse.
So right now, you're in the one stop in Pearl with that.
Well, we don't have clerical staff of our own. That's what the Family Resource Center does for us. And we don't have a nurse.
With the opening of the one stop, I mean, the clinic in Doyle, is it necessary to have a nurse out there?
Well, the advantage of having a nurse is that we need to have blood pressure checks, weight checks, all those things that you look at when a person's taking medications, or if they're suffering from depression, even if they're not taking medications, these are the things you need to watch. And it's part of doing that whole person approach to behavioral health and physical health.
So if you split up those entities, it's gonna cause a transportation problem, whereas if they're centered, the transportation problem is less. So,
Not necessarily, because Health and Social Services provides transportation, not just for behavioral health clients, but we also provide them for social services clients, for public health clients. I mean, we can provide transportation for anyone who needs services. That is something that we would approve. And that's why one of the things we look at, because sometimes they want to do things that we don't approve, like go to the store or stop at the thrift store, and those are things that, you know, we, if it's not an appointment for us, we shouldn't be paying for it.
right.
But if we help subsidize a small transportation system out there, then we don't care where it stops after that.
What kind of money do you think that subsidized
I have no
system is
idea.
gonna?
Got no
It's
idea.
not gonna be cheap, we know that,
No, it's not gonna be cheap,
yeah.
and because we're running a big subsidized transportation system, but it's a possibility.
Okay.
It's just an idea that we have discussed, because we know it's a huge need out there for people, whether they're our clients or not.
Absolutely.
Supervisor Chapman.
I had three things, Mr. Chairman. First of all, appreciate Mel bringing this back to the board, and, I mean, we've got to have a discussion on this, and I think we need to stop talking and actually start doing something. I appreciate your desire to wanting to continue to have, you know, the discussions with the various partners and putting together a broad thing, but while that's going on, I think we also need to specifically accomplish a couple of things. First of all, on the Big Valley Community One Stop, you know, we set out long time ago, I mean, long time ago, to expand that building and provide additional space. And maybe the problem was that we've got too big in terms of our thinking, and we kept adding, and pretty soon, you know, and then the money, you know, by waiting, the value of the money shrinks, so what you can do with the money becomes less and less as each year goes by. And I think both of those work against, I think, getting something accomplished. Personally, I like what I see in option two is it's immediate. We need to try to get something in place sooner rather than later, and I think bringing in a modular and adding to the space that is already there is the best solution. You could put your ADA compliance in terms of restrooms and stuff in there and actually maybe convert some of the space that's tied up with substandard restrooms in the older part of the operation, but at least you create a campus where people can focus their attentions. And I think that's the message the community has delivered to this board time and again. So I think rather than kind of going for the, the sticks and stones and the nice remodel and expansion project that, obviously when the bids came in, outstripped what was available in the budget, is not an option. This, I think, provides us an option to provide the square footage and give the relief for space that that area needs. And it kind of keeps that focus there, where it's at, instead of, obviously, some of the services that maybe your department has may want to choose to relocate out to Aden. I don't see a problem as you kind of sort through that, but at least we have, the bulk of the program focused there on the county-owned property right there in kind of the heart of the valley, and I think that's the message. So I would be strongly in favor of considering bringing back an action to actually implement that and resolving that issue once involved, because I think time is long since run out in terms of getting that there. The second item is dealing with the Fort Sage, and I appreciate the dialogue that you bring in here. Obviously, something's going to happen with the CSD and the PUD. I know LAFCO is entertaining basically a consolidation of those two. That's in the process. Probably sometime by next year, I could see that being happening. The South Lassen Community Building, is not a very large building, but it's one that the county owns. It's on land that the county has. It was built with the new federalism dollars that Nixon brought in the early 70s, and that particular funding was put there because they had to find a place to spend the money, and the supervisor at that time, they kind of divided up the pot, and that's how the Big Valley expansion took place there on the memorial, all that extra wing kind of off to the west. That was what provided for the Westwood Community Building. I mean, that was the funding originally. It put those facilities into place. We own it there again. I think because we weren't using it. It was used for a while as a substation in South County at that time because of the military base being there and them providing all the amenities that they did. It was something that the community didn't really have a need for, so it kind of sat idle. Now the base isn't there, the amenities that the Army provided aren't really readily available, so now all of a sudden there's needs. So I think we should reclaim that building back to our use, and I'm not sure what the square footage is of the lot that it sits on, but if there's available space adjacent to that building, bringing in a modular just like you've done, or would be doing up in Big Valley, would be another way of providing expanded, platform for a service to be located there. And I think as an extension, the third item is, I appreciate what you're sharing about the transportation, because some of us do sit on the Transportation Commission, and I think if your department, if there was some funding that was available and you came to the Transportation Commission and wanted to develop a partnership, I think realigning some of the transit funds that we have to work with and installing maybe a van that just kind of basically ran around the corridor between Doyle and Hurlong and maybe Milford in terms of moving people around. We already have the commuter routes that come from this end of the valley down to Hurlong, and if you had a kind of like a localized internal system that moved people around that could engage that to allow them to maybe transfer up to take care of business in Susanville or Janesville or somewhere along the lines and vice versa, bringing them back. I think that's something that could be maybe built into the contract with Lassen Rural Bus, and instead of you trying to operate it or the county trying to operate it or something.
I was going to let Family Resource Center operate it.
Well, instead of letting the Family Resource Center.
I already got a transportation system.
Is make that part of the Lassen Rural Bus operation. They've got the equipment, they've got the shop, they've got the mechanics, they've got the training, they've got the drug testing, they have all the things that need to be in place to run a transit type of a system. They're actually providing that basic service to the seniors program. They're more or less being contracted through using Lassen Rural Bus operation. And I think that kind of a partnership with the transit folks, with Lassen Transportation Commission and working with the company there that runs it, I think would be a great way to provide kind of, because of the geographic spread there. I mean, Westwood is a little bit more compact. Big Valley does have a little bit of a distance around, and maybe if this model worked really well there, something like that could be established, that would allow for, you know, some movement around even the Big Valley area. You've got Little Valley, Pittville, Aiden that kind of tie into, you know, Beaver in terms of being a center of service. But I think that would be one that would be an excellent one to pursue. And I think those of us who sit on the Transportation Commission would be, you know, I think would be real interested in wanting to try to see how that could be put together. So you could accomplish that, but you have to have that hub. And I think maybe utilizing the South Lassen Community Building as the focal point and augmenting that with maybe, not that you connect the two together, but they're like next door. I mean, you go over to the Bunyan campus, where you've got a half a dozen buildings with county programs located in different programs. They're not all connected. You have to walk out the door, cross the parking lot, enter another door, maybe to access.
Over the bridge.
And over the bridge, yeah, I love that part of it, going over the bridge. But you have the ability, though, in one general area to localize the service. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one contiguous building where everybody can stay indoors. But I think that that's, in both of those areas, I think we have a lot of opportunity. But I think we need to start implementing the opportunity rather than just sitting back and taking notice of it and thinking about it. And I for one, feel that, especially up in Big Valley, we've waited too long. We need to get something moving relatively fast. And that, I think, does that. And it's, the cost is there, and you have, you know, before that $646,098 shrinks in any more value, the sooner we could utilize that to get that in place. Because at the rate we're going, you know, that $150,000 for the modular is going to wind up, you know, that $646,000. That's all we're going to have left in terms of value. We'll be lucky that we can only buy just the one modular. You know, maybe with that, two modulars, one for down in South County, and one for up in Big Valley, would be a step forward. So that would be my take on it, Mr. Chairman.
So the $150 a square foot that's indicated in here for a modular, is that, do you think, is that kind of like a highest?
It's a ballpark. Until we really know, define what we want to do there exactly and how many square foot they exactly need. It's a
I mean, that might only end up being like $85
Oh,
a foot.
absolutely. I didn't want to try to lowball it and then have surprises on that end.
Yeah, I mean, that fixed there.
Yeah.
That 100, that's a lot
It's a lot of money.
for a square foot for a modular, it's probably gonna be a lot less.
Especially if you're going to use a lot of that square footage, like for storing the food for the pantry. You don't need, you know, and so I think open space wise is what you want to create. You want to create some office space, but you also want to create some open space.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly support that, I mean, it's Aaron's, neck of the woods, you know. Curious to see what you think about that.
I'd like to add into that, I'd like to hear what Aaron's recommendation is in his district.
Yeah.
Well, my thought of it is, and I was going to ask Melody this, is when Jim was talking, if we do the option two with the modular, is that going to give enough space for the food pantry? Is that just going to accommodate the office space?
Well, the 1,000 square foot would accommodate the office space and a small conference room, and it wouldn't provide any additional space for food storage. But that is another thing that we could, you know, discuss while we're meeting at the one-stops, because you can get the containers, like the shipping containers, to store food in. Some of them are even refrigerated if you wanted to pay for it. So I don't know what other options are out there for storing the food. I know storing the food has kind of become an issue.
How much space do you need for the?
I have no clue. But I do know that the Aiden School up there is much, changes in this part. In the paradigm shift, you know, to make that transition started, but the Aiden School has space for all the office needs that they would need. It's ADA accessible, they would have plenty of room for storage. I mean, it's a big facility up there. And, I mean, it's just over the line in Modoc County, but they serve both places and Melody's, I mean, I don't know.
Our concern was as long as we could build Medi-Cal, and they said that would be okay as long as we met the requirements, which it should, with some slight modification, yes.
And is the school district willing to give you a long-term?
That's my next question.
You know, we never got to that part of the conversation because it kind of got shot down by the community, but they seemed open to it. The guy who maintains the building, and I'm sorry, I forgot his name, is it Mike? he loves that building, and he would be happy to have somebody in there, and the superintendent seemed fine with it too, so.
So anyway, I mean, I'm kind of torn, I don't necessarily agree with, the community up there as far as, you know, I mean, I have a hard time spending a whole bunch of money to make a little improvement there, when we could spend a little bit of money and have a very big facility. Granted, it's not owned by the county, so I mean, I'm gonna leave that to Melody's discretion, but that's my personal opinion.
What do you think about that? Do you think-
Well, I think either one could work. I thought the school was a really nice facility. Most of you have seen it, right? It's very charming.
Well, I
And,
mean, if you say. either
Beautiful
one,
grounds, and it's ADA, there's a nice office in one end that's,
That's a $40,000 fix, and the other one's $170,000 fix, so the $40,000 fix, you like that, and Melody likes that.
So if you can put in a transportation system in Doyle Hurl, can you put a similar transportation system up there and leave the current one stop as a satellite headquarters or whatever, and maybe transport people to the Aiden School?
it's something we need to talk about, because we'd have to also work with MODOC on that, as far as, because the transportation system that I know the Family Resource Centers are envisioning isn't limited to just where health and social services clients are permitted to go. Because they want to go to Fall River and shop, they want to go over to Aden and have a burger at Oni's. I mean, there are things they want to do and they can't get around, and obviously we can't send our drivers to take them there. I have no idea what it might cost, but it would certainly be something that we would consider. Because it would get my driver and van out of that area, and someone else would be taking care of it and be off my list. That'd be fine with me.
So we have no cooperation from Modoc County on any of this stuff?
Well, we have a contract with them for, I believe it's $37,000 or $38,000 to provide some behavioral health services,
Okay.
and that's about it.
So, to me, I mean, the Big Valley situation is real critical, and we need to get that handled one way or the other, whatever we end up deciding to do. The one in Hurlong, there's some moving pieces yet there that have to be considered, that we should probably take our time a little bit and make sure that we do the right thing. But the Big Valley one is the important issue that we have right now.
I would just suggest that with the Furlong one, I know the board's aware of it, just to remind you all, we've got a month-to-month lease there.
Right,
So
actually, I
the
get that.
security isn't very good on that particular property.
What's our lease arrangement with the West Patton Village on the South County Community Building? I mean, is that, are we getting, I mean,
I'm not real familiar with the terms of the lease.
How many square feet is that building, Pete? It's small.
Yeah, maybe,
600?
Maybe.
Maybe.
it's
Maybe
got
that.
2 offices, a little corridor for
And
the
a meeting
bathrooms,
room
and then
and a
it's got a
bathroom.
meeting room
And
that's.
those bathrooms aren't ADA, are they?
No.
Yeah.
They were built in 1974.
It seems, like a great idea to pursue that option too. I mean, if Aaron likes that, and just see what we
He likes
can
option
firm
two.
up with that.
Oh,
Sorry, option.
I was
Yeah.
just talking about option 3,
Yeah.
because nobody else was familiar. And Xavier from Big Valley, he's a representative, I mean, maybe we'd like to come to him and speak on some of that.
Well, I mean, I agree with, we've been talking about.
Yeah, we need to move forward with that.
Talk, we need to hurry up.
Well, I want to see us do something while we still have money to do something with. I mean, that's the thing that drives me crazy.
One last question, Melody, you have had no conversations with the Aiden School over the longevity of, are you gonna lease the building from them, are they providing it?
No, it would be a lease,
Okay,
and we didn't discuss price or anything, because,
okay.
um,
And that doesn't interfere with their day-to-day operations in their school?
the school is empty except for one modular in the back, in which they're running a state preschool. The rest of it's empty.
So the least
Well,
money
there's
that you
one,
would be,
there's one classroom that's also leased to somebody to do something occasionally.
so the least money that you would be paying would benefit their schools.
The reason why they shut that down is, just like anywhere, other small communities, the numbers drop, there's not the kids, so they consolidated. Because the school that we're looking at up there, that used to be a K through third facility, and then 4 through high school, went down to Beaver. Well, the classrooms got small, and they just combined classes now, and everything's down in Beaver right now.
It is, Jim. It's a beautiful school. It's a classic.
It is. I have a lot of good memories from that.
It must be a classic.
Now that 3 years now.
Maybe the chilly or he's right, he drove all the way down there, I let DS.
Yeah, just for this occasion. Can I come forward? Yeah, I totally agree that, aiding primary school.
Can you state your name for the record?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Xavier Rodriguez, and I'm from Big Valley, specifically from Beaver. And I also work for Aurora, and I volunteer all over the place. I totally agree with Melody and you that, the Indian primary school is a nice place. No disagreement about that. The one thing that, became very clear, especially in the last stakeholders meeting, was that it's not only in Warren County, but also it is, 12 miles from Beaver, and even farther distance from Little Valley and all that part of the county, which includes State Road and Pitville. And so for us, definitely, it's not practical. If the issue were to be resolved, just by providing transportation, we need to remember that transportation is only applied to those that receive behavioral health. Okay, so that means the rest of the population, they have to get there on their own. Okay, so second, I need to mention that, I need to ask you this question, Aaron. Is your wife on the board of the school district? No, she's not. Okay, someone mentioned that she was. But just the fact that, Megan Dolly, the wife of Brian Dolly, is on the board. For some reason, people feel that there's a conflict of interest. Meaning there's some, personal interest, vested in moving, the one stop to Lady. It's just that perception alone, that makes people all the more, opposing, that move. Just that alone, most people have perceived, there's other motives, she's on the board, we can rent that place and bring some money to the school district, and meanwhile, what about all the practicalities, the needs and so forth, of the consumers. So just that alone, and so in the last stakeholders meeting, that became very, very clear, that people, for all sorts of reasons, they will be opposed to that move. And I need to make another clarification. The other one is the fact that, as you were discussing about, the pantry, and this and that, we're talking, if the ones that were to move to the Indian primary school, we're talking strictly about the services the county provides. We're talking about food pantry, this has to do more with the family resource center. So we're not talking about moving the entire resource center, including, the one-stop services. Okay, so then, that automatically, doesn't apply to this discussion. Okay, second, well, I already said second, third point would be that we need also to make a clear distinction between the behavioral services, and, as Melody said, and I'm quoting, mandated by the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, to integrate those services. And that's probably why she approached Dave Jones, the medical center, to rent space from them. And Dave, based on what she said, that he said there's no space, to rent. However, one thing that I did hear was that he did ask that if the county was interested in contracting with the medical center, that they would, just move the counselor and possibly the caseworker, into the medical center, if you guys were to contract with the medical center. And I can see, that it's moving in that direction. That's why, this pool of separating, the one-stop from the resource centers, I can see, that's where the pool is, it doesn't surprise me. However, I need to mention this, that, regardless of what the move is, I'm very close to the community. I've been making calls on behalf of them, to partnership health plan, in whether it's, diabetic medication, dentist, oral surgery appointments, again and again, the answer is no, we don't cover it. Okay, so I can see that, eventually if, all this were to go in that direction, eventually that's going to fall back on the lap of the county. Okay, so at this point, I'm not going to get too much into it, other than the fact that if we establish, that strong partnership between the resource centers and the one-stop services, that is guaranteed that, those services are going to be there, in whatever measure, they can be provided, but they're going to be, because we're talking also, the transportation issue, we're talking, the appointment issue, all that stuff that is implied. And, if we was to start separating, we're going back to square one. We're going back to 2006 when there was no one-stops, okay? And it was precisely the one-stops that, kind of propped up the resource centers. So if we separate that and start going in a different direction, then at that point, believe me, it is going to be a disservice to the community. And I'm speaking primarily for North County, because that's where the communities are most isolated, scattered, the services, transportation and so forth. Today, I brought a client, he has businesses, in the other end of town, as a city judge. He's one of those that was receiving behavioral health services, and at one point, and I'm gonna go into the numbers of this
I
one.
don't wanna, sorry to interrupt, but you need to kind of wrap it up. Because you
Yeah, that's my final point. At one point, he was told, we cannot give you any appointments, you have to be, if you want to receive service, you have to be part of a support group. And we're talking, a bunch of clients that, have all kinds of phobia problems. Okay, so guess what they did, at that point it was basically, when they send the next counselor, was, cut those numbers that are receiving those services and brought those numbers to a bare minimum. So whenever you guys are, fed these numbers, we're talking, that was done on purpose. Okay, the services, are hugely needed, and if, those numbers, may reduce to, just, the bare minimum, again, it is a disservice to the people that need those services, and we have
Is there anyone else would like to speak for the public? mean, from my perspective, I mean, I think if there's no, no matter what the option, you could have 10 options. I think I'd like for Aaron, sort of the key board member for the area to speak with Melanie and come back and give us something to vote on, I mean, rather than, you got, 12 different people trying to figure it out, you figure it out and bring it back, and we'll, support you. Next thing. Reset the sense of.
I think more than that.
Yeah.
And
That's what I'd like, so we could get it going.
And I would like to spend a little more time with the school. I mean, we need to get that hammered down before we make a final decision. I don't want to.
Why don't
The school might not even work out.
But why don't we try and get something going in the next month, on one of our agenda items, move it forward and I'd be happy to.
So the street walk might not even work, and that's gonna be 1 or 2, and then that just,
But I think we need to get something in front of us.
I'm happy to put that.
And I think the other two, the Westwood, what we're gonna do on that in the Long Valley. Maybe come back in 30 days with an update on those, all three of them.
I'd like to see us have a firm resolution on what we're gonna finally get done in Big Valley where the snow flies.
That's a pretty good one.
That's the one I might be able to actually get an answer on. The others are not,
They're not quite.
there's
that
not a whole
simple
lot
yet.
of stuff to discuss there
They're not
yet.
simple yet.
Thank you.
They're prob-
Let's do that.
They need to read it, yeah.
I wanna help, I wanna give you the yes vote to help me. I'm gonna bring back another $700,000 fix. Is there anything else before we move on? Okay, so you,
Page 4 is mine. Yes, I do, then I will
Okay.
have your Supervisor Alpha.
Page
Be
4.
back in 30 days.
Okay. Let's just take a quick 5-minute recess and then we'll come back.